Hello, my name is Jamie Jones, and today I will be talking to you about strokes, what causes them, the different types, signs and symptoms, and as well as prevention. Stroke is the third leading cause of death in the United States. Approximately 795,000 people will suffer from a stroke. 600,000 of them are going to be first attacks, while the remaining are recurrent attacks. So, what is a stroke? A stroke can also be called a brain attack, and it occurs when a blood clot forms in an artery or a blood vessel will rupture. This causes an interruption in blood flow to the brain, and when either of these things can occur, brain cells will die and damage is going to occur. When damage has been done to a certain area of the brain, it's going to cause damage to the rest of the body. Your right side of your brain is going to control the left side of your body, so your left arm and your left leg. When someone has a stroke, they're going to have impairments with all of these things like motor function, so your ability to coordinate movements, your balance and walking, your speech, and your memory. The magnitude of the stroke will depend on the extent of all of these impairments. For example, if you have a stroke occurring in your frontal lobe, left side of the brain, you're going to have speech impairments, and your speech functions that are controlled there include your ability to speak, motor plan, what I'm doing right now, as well as your ability to understand speech. So we know what strokes are. So let's go a little bit more in detail about the different types of strokes, and I do have a nice illustration for all of you to see, and we'll go on to that a little bit. So the first type is called an ischemic stroke, and there are two different types of an ischemic stroke. But an ischemic stroke occurs when a blood vessel in the brain becomes blocked by a clot that has been formed. And this clot can either be embolic or thrombic. And an embolic clot is a traveling clot that usually forms in the heart, or it can form elsewhere in the body. And by the time that it reaches your brain, the clot is too large to fit into the blood vessels that supply the brain with nutrients. A thrombic clot is a little bit different. And a thrombic clot occurs when it begins to form in the blood vessel already in the brain. And then it blocks off that blood supply eventually after the buildup. The second common type of stroke is a hemorrhagic stroke. This is a little bit more detrimental. It happens when a pressure is building up inside of that blood vessel and it causes it to rupture. So that blood supply is leaking out into the brain. So what causes this pressure or this buildup in this vessel for this to happen? As you can see, there's the picture of the hemorrhagic stroke down here, and there are the other two that we talked about. So high blood pressure is something that can attribute to a hemorrhagic stroke. Normal blood pressure is typically 120/80. High blood pressure is 140/90. Another thing that can be a cause of a stroke is atrial fibrillation. Atrial fibrillation is an irregular heartbeat, and this can be very detrimental because of the irregular heartbeat. Blood can start to pool into the chambers of the heart, causing clot, and then when the blood is pumped to the rest of the body and reaches the brain, that clot can become lodged in the blood vessels in the brain, causing a stroke. Smoking is another thing that can lead to strokes, especially if you're over the age of 55, drinking as well. So we've talked about what they are, the different types, the causes. So what are your signs and symptoms? A very easy acronym for you to remember is FAST. It stands for face, arm, speech, and time. Face. Ask the person if you think that they're having a stroke. to smile. If one side of their face seems drooped, that could be a good sign. Arm, ask them to raise both arms. If one is lagging behind the other, that could also be a good indicator of some motor impairments in the arm. Speech, have them repeat a very simple sentence. Will you make me a sandwich? If their speech seems impaired or slowed in any way, slurred, that could also be a good sign. Time. Time is something that is very important when you think someone is having a stroke. You need to call 911 immediately if you think that someone you know is having a stroke. So we've talked about all of these things. We've signs, symptoms, the types, the causes. So what can you do to lessen your chance or prevent the occurrence of you having a stroke? Your risk factors, like we talked about earlier, hypertension, AFib, diabetes, atherosclerosis, and high blood pressure. All of these things are risk factors. So if you have any of these risk factors, go to your doctor. Talk. What medications can I take? What certain lifestyle changes can I make so I can lessen my chances? So we talked about all of those things, and I hope that this has helped someone in some way, educate them about a stroke. If you have any of those risk factors, go to your doctor. I just really wanted to inform people more about what strokes are and ways that you can prevent them. Thank you so much for listening.